welcome to How to Win the Lottery, Danielle Chelosky module, Cheat and Show Me Your Face, two-part episode. The first time we've ever covered two books in one episode. I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I am Shreds.
You are.
The reason, first of all, why are we covering two books in one episode?
They are shorties.
They're very short.
And also, she is selling them on her site sort of as a bundle. I mean, they're not necessarily of the same thing, but it also feels like they are maybe about the same character.
Right.
And the same relationships.
They complement each other well.
Yes. Cheat a little bit longer, about 58 pages maybe, and then Show Me Your Face about 16 pages.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about these separately, together? How do you want to do this?
Let's talk about them separately. Let's talk about them in the order in which they came out, which is Cheat and then Show Me Your Face.
Cheat a little bit longer.
I'm sure that I'm sure that our conversation will bleed into one another in any circumstance like this. But yeah, let's start with Cheat.
So Cheat tells the story of an unnamed, I think, right? Protagonist?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Who's 17 years old, maybe living on or near Long Island, navigating love and addiction, if not hers and her partner's, through the end of her high school years.
Is this the official?
No, it's my notes.
Oh, those are your notes? That sounded like an official.
I'm trying to be official.
Yeah. Something that stood out immediately to me here is, and already I'm gonna bleed it into Show Me Your Face. Show me your face. Is that?
Yeah.
How am I messing up the titles already?
I also thought when we get to Show Me Your Face, I thought it was going to be like a sexting thing where like I want to see up, but she wants to show down. Anyway.
Sure.
We'll talk about it.
Between these two, it's interesting because they are both incredibly sexual books about a sexualized 17-year-old who is largely engaging with people who are older than her by
at least a couple years and sometimes more than a couple years.
Not like the worst thing in the world, but still something that like as an adult, I look at that and think like that's like fairly creepy.
She also does point out, I think maybe in Show Me Your Face, she's like, I am 17. He was okay with that. I told Tinder I was 18 because that's the minimum, but 17 is the age of consent in New York. I'm just like,
yeah, it's gross. It's but also like I knew, when I was 17, I knew girls that dated guys that were in their 20s easily. Like that's something that happens.
There was a girl that, not to tell tales out of school here, but there was a girl that was like at my bus stop when she was a freshman in high school. She was dating a senior. I'm just like, an 18 to 14-year-old is like such a big,
and
that feels yucky.
It's also only something that you it's only something that I like in retrospect feel really weird about.
Yeah.
Like when I was 17 and I knew girls who dated people who were like 23, I always thought like, like whatever.
Yep.
And I think we're often sold a lie about, I don't know if it's a lie, but we're told about the maturity of girls, that girls mature significantly more quickly than boys. But like part of me believes that is propaganda done by 23-year-old men so that they can sleep with 16-year-old girls and feel like, well, like our maturity level matches, and they might be right, but that doesn't mean that they...
I mean, there's also the truth that like they are fucking idiots, 23-year-old boys.
Yeah, and essentially 14, they're essentially 14 years old. So I like something that I talk about sometimes to illustrate this point about girls and boys and the different maturity levels is that I coached a debate team. It was 6th to 8th grade, and the girls wanted to debate about things like gun control and stuff like that, and the boys, I'm not kidding, were debating like what were better, Lincoln Logs or Magna Tiles, and it was just like, oh, there is like a vast difference in the maturity of the genders in this case. But yeah, I think that this is largely propaganda by 23-year-old guys so that they can fuck 16-year-old girls.
We'll also bring it back to the text here, like that almost doesn't matter because we don't see the perspective of anybody but her, right? Her as in the character, not her as in Danielle.
Yeah. And also like something that is interesting to me about both these texts, and I think it expands into other texts written by young women, like very sexualized texts, is that there doesn't seem to be very much joy in any of the sexuality.
No.
The sex sort of drives you toward a position of loneliness and not a position of like, whatever sex is supposed to do, it's not supposed to make you feel more lonely.
And I do wonder if, like, when we later this season get to female loneliness epidemic, if it's going to be about, like, could be about any number of things, right? It could be about, like, COVID. It could be about virtual experience. It could be just like sex. What you're saying is supposed to bring us closer. Physical intimacy is supposed to bring us closer.
And it's obviously like sort of ironically turning it on its head, this idea of the male loneliness epidemic, which is places like the Atlantic can't stop writing about it. Starting with Cheat. Cheat is told in like a journalistic format.
Yep.
Right? You get
like journals, not journalism, but yes.
Yeah, journals. You get a date for each entry. Some of them are short. Most of them are short. It's not. None of this is like
It's 50 whatever pages, but it's not 50 pages. It's like because like half of them are half a page, right? So it's probably closer to 30. Like it's a breezy.
Yeah, and you get it. It embraces the journal format because what it does is, I think it doesn't really bother with characterizations, and doesn't really bother with bringing us any like.
It's literally like here's what we did today, or because she's writing it to. There are two men. There is Jason, right? Jared.
Yeah,
and there is an unnamed man.
Who's the second person, right? Who is always mentioned as you.
Right. And she's writing this to you. So they're not necessarily a journal unless she's maybe like writing a journal.
Yeah, it's epistolary in whatever.
But also, it does feel more like a journal than a series of letters, even though she is addressing these all to you. And so it's not necessarily like I woke up into this thing. It's just like, here's basically how I thought about you or when I thought about you today or whatever.
Yeah. And the other the characters are drawn as like, this character's in rehab. And then we don't really understand anything else about him, so we're meant to paint that character with what we know about someone who might be in rehab.
Right.
And there's no way for us to really think like we're going to side with this person, we're going to side against this person, because their actions and their state of mind are left really abstract to us. Right? What's going on in this thing?
Well, I mean, the Yankees are getting annihilated, and it's my pitcher going. But I'm sorry, I'm listening. I have not strayed. I'm just like rolling my eyes hard at Will Warren right now. But keep going.
Okay. No, you go talk about.
No, I think that like I don't want to jump ahead to Show Me Your Face already, but I think like what limited my enjoyment of this was the format. Like I felt like I think what Show Me Your Face does really well is what she is not allowing herself to do in this, which is just sort of like skip to the good parts.
Well, I'm interested in like how I think a lot of people. I'm actually not sure how old Danielle is. My guess would be that she's like 24, 25.
Should I look it up?
No.
Okay.
We can just ask her when she's
How old are you?
My guess is that she's 24, 25. But a lot of people, even people my age, I would say not people older than me, but people my age, I'm 42 years old. People my age and younger, a lot of them learned how to write through things like LiveJournal and Xanga.
Well, I think what's also
Tumblr.
It's not exactly about what that reminds me of, or what I'm realizing now is that I think, unless I'm forgetting things, Cheat is very technology agnostic. Where
right. Yes.
In Show Me Your Face, there are iMessage things, and there's like Instagram and whatever, and so like it has to be at a certain point.
Yeah,
but Cheat is. It feels modern, but it also could be kind of just about. I mean, it's calling and texting or whatever. Like there's some, but it's like it doesn't necessarily have to be in the last 5 years or in the last 15 years or whatever. It could kind of be sort of whenever.
I guess the reason why it reminded me of LiveJournal and of how people learn to write through LiveJournal is that I think LiveJournal and other blogs like it were places where people could be very performative, but also very confessional.
Sure.
And so you could present a version of your life that was like, this is the person that I want to be, or this is the person I'm pretending to be. Sometimes that could get to really dark places and really immoral or morally gray places.
Well, it's also like called to a head in Show Me Your Face when she's like, I posted this picture to my Finsta of my head on his chest, and someone commented like, or texted me like, you should probably take that down because it's clear you're both naked. And she's like, that's the point. He says, I don't understand.
Yeah.
So she is like literally like, I am putting out there into the world a version of myself that is who I am, but also,
Well, kind of. It's also this version of herself that is, I think both books sort of are about this, but there is this idea of sex positive feminism that.
Is it? I mean,
no, it's not. It's like there is a version of sex positive feminism that has influenced people to embrace sexuality in a way that is an attempt to be a type of person rather than the person that they really are. I'm not dogging sex positive feminism here, because I think sex is a morally neutral thing, and I think anyone should have whatever sex they want to have. But I think the way Chelosky is presenting sex in this book, because she talks about, like,
specifically in Cheat,
she talks about being like a quote unquote slut, and like that being sort of the mission, right? Or a hoe, like presenting herself as that. And because then you can like wear that as a label and people will think of you as that thing, but that thing has been presented online as being sort of cool. But then that thing also puts her in uncomfortable positions where she frankly just doesn't want to be in.
Well, it's also like, I think she uses the word hoe a couple times, HOE.
Sure.
I think there's something where she is still technically a virgin, even after she's had all these sexual experiences, both online and in real life, to the point where people are like, "You're a virgin?" And she's like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Wow, that's crazy."
Right. And
it's like, well, yeah, I mean, because I think that's maybe the most interesting thing that like either of these sort of get at, which is like the version of yourself that you put out there when somebody, I don't want to say like calls you on your bullshit, but like thinks they're getting something from you, and she's like, "Oh, actually, no, like that's not really who I am."
Yeah.
But then also because she's dealing with like 22-year-old guys, it's like, I don't give a shit, we still gonna have sex, right? Or whatever, right? So I think there is an interesting dynamic there about positioning yourself as something, people being like, okay, cool, and then being like, well, that's not me, but also it's fine, we're right here.
Yeah, the most interesting moment in Cheat to me is at the very end, when she is back on the beach. That in the very beginning of the book is when she first cheats on her boyfriend at that beach.
Yep.
And she announces to the group of people that she's with, "This is where I cheated on my boyfriend." And that is like a kind of performative immorality that wants to present herself to the world as a certain type of person, like sort of like a person that's like, announces to everybody like how drunk they got last weekend, or how they like, "Oh, you wouldn't believe the amount of whatever I did." I think that gets presented in her head in the story. And she like, there's meta commentary on this, that it doesn't really go down the way that she thinks it is.
She's basically like, as soon as I said the words, I didn't know what I wanted.
Yeah.
Right?
And no one else gives a shit. Everyone's just like, what are we supposed to, how are we supposed to react to that? What's the point of telling us that you cheated on your boyfriend here?
There's also like a good way to end the thing. Like the whole thing is called Cheat. Like I also think it's interesting that like, maybe this is sexism, maybe this is just like assumption, but I sort of assumed that she was going to be cheated on. This was gonna be like her working through that. But then the fact that she is the cheat.
Oh yeah, I didn't think that.
Again, I'm a sexist pig. But I'm also like, that's against men. Where I'm just like, but it's like, no, she is the cheat, and she's writing a letter about like the time she cheated on you, the recipient of this.
But also it feels like the cheating aspect of it like doesn't entirely feel like that big of a deal to me throughout. It doesn't feel like the emotional crux is on that.
Also, like in Show Me Your Face, if this is meant to be the same character and the same two men that she references, it's now instead of you, it's Joseph. Like we maybe have a name for it.
It's all J names, right? Joseph, Jared. I think there's a Jack in there.
Hell yeah. It feels like and again, it's for a different purpose, but it feels like in Show Me Your Face, neither of them really give a shit that much. It's just like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes this sadder that she's having all this internal dialogue about a thing and about a guy who like doesn't really care.
Well, again, I think that's what being a 17-year-old is like, right? There's like so much pressure to like do whatever for whatever reason.
Yes.
And then like the reality is that at the end of the day, nobody gives a shit about anything.
No.
It's like
also like this guy that she is like writing his letters to is literally in and out of rehab. Like he's got other things going on that are like of more importance that he's more focused on than like whether this girl that he might be with possibly or whatever is faithful to him.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting.
Like she's not there for him. Like it's not like she's like visiting him or like whatever. She just like, hey, you know that other guy, like here, like this is when I slept with him. And this is like I was thinking of you. It's like, well, that doesn't maybe like help me with my shit instead of like whatever. I do think going back to what we were talking about before about like 17-year-old and like early 20s, it felt like I think there's like a naturalism that I was maybe not expecting, because it doesn't feel like, for lack of a better word, like scandalous enough. Like it's not like she's like with really older men, even though again they are older men, but it's not like she's like with like a 30-year-old or a 40-year-old. It just feels like, oh, it's just kind of like a young idiot sort of.
Yeah, right. I think it's realistic.
Right.
I think it's presenting like a very common thing that happens.
And I also think my other sort of high level thought about this, and I had this before I read Show Me Your Face, and I think it was largely done well, exactly this in Show Me Your Face, is that I kind of wish that there was more there. Like I felt sort of like perfunctory, like matter of fact, like this is the thing, this is the thing, this is the thing by design.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I kind of wish that there was just like less of this and more just like meat or more stuff. And then so that's when in Show Me Your Face, it's like a bunch of things. I think the writing is better. I think it's more interesting. It's also like getting to the good parts faster.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is kind of what I wanted in the first part, but like I like that this is here. Like I sort of like having both.
You see an evolution of style between the two.
Yeah. Like also, you know, I highlight quotes and the things. I use one as a pull quote for the episode, and like I highlighted a couple things in Cheat, but like in Show Me Your Face, like there's way more stuff that I found like, oh, that's like a really interesting line or a really interesting like juxtaposition or something. And I'm like, maybe it's style. Maybe she just became a better writer. Maybe, I don't know, who knows, but
sure. Yeah.
I thought it was a much more compelling thing, the second one, than the first.
Yeah. So what is the essential story in Show Me Your Face? What is that book about?
I didn't write one of those for this. But it's, I think, ostensibly probably the same character, maybe starting a year earlier. I think she's like 16 here. Yeah. And it kind of chronicles her journey collecting sexual experiences online. Like it's a much more online novel than the first one.
Right.
FaceTime, iPhone, iMessage, sexting, getting nudes, sending nudes,
right.
Whatever. A much more internet module kind of thing. Also dealing with the same two men from the first, from Cheat.
Yeah.
But in a different perspective, and also like filling in her life more in a way that she's like, this is all the things that I'm going through, as opposed to like being about the two guys and more about her and how she's like going out into the world.
A lot of fingering.
Poorly.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably also typical. I think a lot of people were fingered badly in their lives. When
she like describes like he was clinical, he was just like searching for assist. I'm like, oh, it's very like, I know exactly what she means. And also like, that's so sad.
It's interesting because the sex in this book, and again, it's a novel largely about sexual experiences, is like not at all sexy.
No.
Right. It's very much lonely, and it's just like, I blew him in the Walmart parking lot. He came in my mouth.
And then it upset my stomach so much I had to throw out my underwear.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's a crazy
right.
thing.
Yeah.
Whereas in the first one, like she gets sick to her stomach because she's drinking like shitty vodka on vacation with her family. Like we don't know her mother or brother or whatever at all.
Yeah.
We don't even really know the guy, like the resort worker who gives her the vodka, but it's just like she's sick in both. But like this is like such a more visceral thing. Yeah,
I would say that visceral is a good word for it. There is a visceral loneliness to the sexual activity in Show Me Your Face.
Mm-hmm. I also really love the mixed media in this one. Like pictures of iPhone text, and then at the end, Instagram, or like iPhone pictures uploaded to Instagram, pictures of like her and a dog, pictures of like handwritten journal text sort of superimposed over an image. Like I think for it being an online thing, it makes sense to like have these artifacts, again, to what you're saying before about like LiveJournal or Xanga or whatever, where it's like it's presenting that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Does that make you think of it more aesthetically in terms of nonfiction than fiction?
Well, I don't know. Like, I think that like one thing that I have learned on this show over and over again is never assume what you were also saying, that never assume that these are autobiographical, even though it certainly feels like it could be.
Yeah, I think rarely does in Philip Roth's books, though, he's not like, here's a picture of the character from this book, and then it's just a picture of him with his dog, like that doesn't really, so if this is fiction, then it's taking that level of self-identifying metafiction a little bit further than people like Philip Roth or even like Norman Mailer.
I mean, like what's also, not to bring technology further into this, but like there has been a site for years, and now it's just easy with any generator, but like there was a site called thispersondoesnotexist.com.
Yeah. And
every time you refresh it, it just created like a new version of a person's face that like looked like a picture. And so you could theoretically, that might not be her. It could just be like, especially today, you could like prompt some kind of thing, just like Xanga style, like a girl and a dog, dark, whatever, and just like create a thing.
Think that's probably a picture of her with a dog.
I'm just saying it probably, you could do like, I'm just saying when you're comparing to Philip Roth and like what he's not doing, it can be like, well, if she wants to like not put a picture of herself, but it's probably a picture of her. I also thought it was really sad that like she posted the picture of the tweet. I was like, should I re-download Tinder? And like only 11 people respond and like 10 of them say no. It's just like, yeah, it feels very real. It feels just like a very small subsection of people who like respond to a thing and they're like, no, that's not good for you.
I had one tweet go viral one time back when I was still using Twitter, and it was like an anti-American imperialism tweet about like people vaporizing people with drones, and it was awful.
Yeah.
There was so like I was getting notifications like every 5 seconds, and I was just like, this is a nightmare. I cannot imagine living like this. And because every other tweet that I've ever done was exactly like that. It was like, you know, one fave, one reply. But then like the one time that it was like, oh, this is like being someone that is constantly responded to on the internet seems like a certain kind
I don't
of
understand
hell.
how anybody does it. Like even before Twitter was bad, back when Twitter was good, if you were verified, there was like a verified section, but also now that like everybody can just pay for verification, there's like all these bots that are verified. Like every time they like or comment or retweet or whatever, that shows up in theoretically the thing that like is only, oh, LeBron retweeted me or whatever, but just like also like Arnold 8463331 or whatever is also in there because he pays $5 a month or $8 a month.
And he's just like calling you a Jew or something like that, which is like, all right, thanks, man.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just, it's crazy. I don't know how anybody who like that's what's wild about all of it is that theoretically, if that is your goal, by the time you hit that, it's like you can't do anything with it. Like you get the dopamine hit of like having all these notifications.
Yeah.
But I'd rather have the poll with 11 people and like I know who voted in the poll.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Do you think that she should re-download Tinder?
No.
Because it's bad.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pro online dating. It's how I met Margaret. But also, Tinder had its day, and Tinder's day is not when
I think there's also a fundamentally different experience on Tinder between women and men.
Oh, yeah.
And I think right now, again, I actually don't know when this book is meant to take place. My guess would be probably 2019 or something like that.
I mean, we could probably figure it out based on like the iPhone screenshot, but also I don't know.
But yeah,
it feels relatively modern though.
Right. Tinder was probably already bad by 2019. I think if you wanted to get in on the ground floor of Tinder being like a success and something other
2013, 20, like when I first started doing online dating, like when I was 25 or whatever, like that, like Tinder was like, oh, you can actually find like real people here.
Yeah.
And it was like the hookup app, but like it's still like people used it for dating because there weren't like a million other options.
Yeah.
And now it just feels like it's bots and stuff.
Yeah, the world is frightening. I'm old. And read Meg's email.
She sent in 2 emails. I was seeing if there's anything else that I want to say here. Although if this takes place, because I think this starts a little bit earlier in time. Like I think I said she's 16. I think she's 17 in the first one. If it is the same character, which assumes it is. I mean, it's not like COVID's not a thing. So they're like both before or
exactly.
after or whatever. I think it's probably before.
Probably before.
So she's like, I mean, if we're ballparking, if the first question we're going to ask her is how old are you?
We're not going to ask her that question. We can look that up.
I know, but if she's like, I'm guessing she's going to be born in 2000. I'm guessing, 25. And you said 24, right? Oh, there's also the thing. One thing we did not talk about in Cheat, which pops up again, sort of in this, is Cheat has the epilogue that's all strike-through text.
Yeah, right.
About tracing the Scorpio tattoo of dots on his arms.
You know what's interesting about that is that writing is in a style that the rest of the book really isn't in.
Yeah.
It's entering like a more high poetic style than the rest of the book is really conversational and subject, verb, object. Here's what's happening. And then that section that does the strike-through text is written in a much more... I think self-consciously poetic way.
And I wonder why. I mean, I think the answer is probably pretty obvious, but there's a couple different reasons. I guess you would say like why it's in there at all, why it's straight through, whether that's a thing that like she, the author, did, whether it's something that she, the character, did, why it's included, like all different things. I'm curious about that. But then in Show Me Your Face, when I was like, I think these are the same characters, but she references again the Scorpio tattoo. And I was like, oh, okay, these are like not confirmed, but like confirmed to be the same dudes.
Yeah.
So it's cool to have the sort of connective tissue like that.
Right.
I also, not that we need to circle back, but people out there are like, please circle back. when I was saying show me your
They're
face.
always asking us to circle back.
Circle back. I thought it was gonna be like her sending like headless nudes or whatever, and people are like, oh, I want to see your face. Like, I love you though. I want to see your face. But she's like embarrassed and just showing her like forehead and her eyes. They're like, no, like tilt the camera down. Like, I want to see you as a person.
Yeah, she's changing. She's
throwing a curveball.
Yeah, she's playing 3-card money with you.
We do have an email address, lottery@cageclub.me. We have 2 emails from Egg, but we also have other emails.
Oh yeah, other emails, multiple.
Well, so a couple things. So number one, got a couple of subscribers on YouTube. If you want to listen to this on YouTube, every episode's on YouTube. I mean, if that's just like a preferred thing, that was just me saying Mamma Mia, Will Warren. You could ignore that. We also got 2 more emails from Eve Bailey of Eve Bailey Media pitching once again.
Same guy?
Pitch, The World is Angry in the Shocking Thriller.
This is the AI guy, right?
It's the guy that we looked up recently.
It looked very much like his cover was made with AI.
Yeah, so Eve says, hey there, Shreds and Joey. I want to introduce you to John Vines, who I believe would be a great fit as a guest on How to Win the Lottery, a book club podcast. What if you were the killer? And she's saying you.
Yeah, you don't need to read her whole thing.
No, but then
it's the exact same email as it was before, right?
But then she says in the next one, I wanted to reach out one last time about John Vines, but it's just, it's an email sequence. But
okay.
I'm just like,
God bless Eve Bailey.
But we also got, so one of the people who subscribed to us on YouTube is Danielle Stern. Do you think it's the Daniel Stern?
Let's hope. That guy is awesome. I love Daniel Stern.
So we have an email from Egg about Cheat, and we have an email from her about Show Me Your Face. Her first one from Cheat. I was surprised at how much I like this. Spoiler alert, she gave it 5 stars on Goodreads. Glowing review from the Egg. This was another book where it felt like I was listening to a friend of mine tell a story.
Yeah.
Chelosky never tries to defend her actions, and she never tries to justify it either. She somehow was able to let the story exist. You also don't get a grasp of the true nature of, quote, you or Jared, which I guess was maybe I was saying before. But that's because the weight of the story is Chelosky's emotional fallout to everything. Or the characters, right?
Yeah, the protagonist, yeah.
The ending felt like a punch in the gut. I liked the use of strike out font because everything else about the book was plain. There wasn't so much as an italicized word. All in all, a strong start to the new module.
All right. Yeah, I agree with everything that the Eggster said.
But then she says, for Show Me Your Face, maybe because I like Cheat so much, this story felt a little flat to me. I did like the fact that the 2 stories intertwined a bit, so you got more nuance of the backstory. On a personal note, the part where Magnus raped 2 of her friends really bothered me.
Yeah.
Like, I understand respecting their privacy, but it's the way it's phrased made it seem like he was a known predator and maybe her second friend could have been warned. Also feels weird to talk about respecting privacy, but then publish it in a book.
Well, again, we're not assuming that this is nonfiction. Right. Come on, Meg.
All in all, a quick read that felt more of the same as Cheat.
Yeah. I think, again, I like Show Me Your Face better because I think it's an evolution of style, and I think it moves past a purely confessional journaling kind of writing.
Yeah. I also think Egg said something to you that I have also said to you that our taste for books and taste for literature and reading or whatever has been shaped by the podcast. Yeah. And it's just funny to me that you and I both, I think, feel a certain way. That, we like Cheat, but we really like Show Me Your Face.
Yeah.
And she's like, you've done the same thing you've done to Joey, but in reverse. It's like, hold on. But I mean, it's a good thing.
I think that it's interesting because you can trace Danielle Chelosky's you can trace her influences pretty easily back through whatever quote unquote alt lit was and your Marie Calloway's and your Darcy Wilders and your Tao Lin's. And
I'm not in this world, but it feels like it would have been so inspiring or empowering to be a person who wants to write, seeing people just do this.
Yeah, if you're in New York in 2012 or whatever.
Yeah, right. Or just online or whatever and being oh my God, you can just do it.
Yeah.
And I know that that's probably
your G chats are art. Just
I'm watching Megan Boyle write live blog in real time.
Just do it. Just get out there, and your writing is.
I know that's the same thing where people now with an iPhone can literally make a movie that looks as good as movies you see in theaters or whatever. But it feels well, I mean,
normally not, but Steven Soderbergh can do that. Most people can't.
Also, Danny Boyle did, I think, for 28 years later too. But fine. Whatever. Anyway, I'm not trying to distract from here, but to be oh no, I'm having the same experiences as them, or Tao Lin or whoever, right? We're just I can do that too. And then like to be able to do it, like it just feels like cool.
It's a real, DIY culture. And this is from, these first two chapbooks are from Waiting Room Press, which is Danielle Chelosky's own press.
Right.
So they're essentially self-published. DIY culture has really advanced with technology. How many people create all of their own content on YouTube? You can create and print your own book and be your own publishing company. And there are drawbacks to that as well, right? Because it's like when you're publishing your own work, it means that it's not going through the mill of getting the approval of editors and stuff like that. So most of the self-published world is absolute slop.
Yeah. Especially now that like the self-published world is largely just like AI generated output that people are putting up there to make a quick buck. Literal slop.
Right. But the other side to that coin is that mainstream publishing and indie publishing is, I think, more cagey than ever and more risk averse than ever. And so if you are a person who's writing in a certain kind of way, you're probably better off self-publishing. There are people like Danielle Chelosky who has found, whether it's Hobart or I don't know where her other stuff has been published, like maybe Apocalypse Party or something like that.
Baby Brews is Filthy Loot.
Filthy Loot. Okay, yeah, Filthy Loot's a great publisher. Like those are publishing companies that will take specific risks. Hobart especially, because Elizabeth Ellen writes this kind of literature, and so she has been a champion of the kind of literature that Danielle Chelosky is putting out, stuff like Chloe Caldwell. There's a space for that.
Well, it feels sort of like, and maybe it's not, but I'm just trying to relate it to something that like I'm more familiar with, like an aspiring filmmaker or something putting some short films on YouTube and getting noticed and getting like some kind of like low budget, indie thing or whatever that they can like.
Yeah, no, it's like, it's Joe Swanberg making films, and then he catches the attention of Mark Duplass, and so Mark Duplass is in Hannah Takes the Stairs, right? And then because of that, then Joe Swanberg is in Baghead, and so like it's this like there is a very like you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours mentality, but like when there's a unified aesthetic to it, like obviously Elizabeth Ellen is publishing a specific kind of work because that's the kind of work that she connects with. And it's interesting because on I think it was blurbed on Elizabeth Ellen specifically blurbs the back of Cheat, and she refers to it as an addiction memoir, but then also sort of backs away from the idea of it as memoir for the same reason that we have. But it's like, I thought of it in the exact same way. I thought like, oh, this is like tracing the patterns of the addiction memoir, because in addiction memoir, what happens is like drugs are supposed to be fun, but what you actually learn is that drugs end up not being very much fun at all. They end up being something that you do to avoid dealing with specific things that you need to deal with in order for your life to not crash and burn.
Right.
And actually they aid in the crashing and burning of your life. And so when the character in Cheat or Show Me Your Face is engaging in these sexual activities that she's not really enjoying, they're coming at the expense of her self-worth, but her self-worth is exactly specifically the thing that she's trying to preserve through creating an image. And the image of herself that she admires is the type of person that people go like, oh, that girl like gives a fantastic blowjob or whatever. And so I don't know. It's really sad. These books end up being really sad, I think. And they follow that pattern of the addiction.
I think it's good. I'm glad. I think like Egg said, we're off to a strong start this module. I'm glad we did these together.
Yeah, me too.
Because I think if we read, because like, you live about an hour away, so we don't do this. It's like we can be like, oh, like we'll just come back tomorrow, like we could or whatever. We just typically don't. So imagine if we had done them separately to like give space between the two. Like I think that they intentionally or inadvertently or whatever work well together. So
yeah,
if you're listening and you haven't read them, I think you get the two together for $6 from our site and read them together.
Yeah, and feel a very specific time and place, and what intimacy is like for a person of a certain mindset.
Yeah.
And that's like a really important thing. Literature is feeling empathy for everything. And things like this locate you so specifically that you can't help but feel empathy for.
And also,
for
even
characters.
if these are not her experiences, like she's probably drawing on like things that happened to her friends or something, you know what I mean? So or just like girls in her situation at the time.
Right. I think it's certainly realism to a degree. It would be hilarious if this book like ended with like a monster emerging from the earth and like destroying a building or something like that.
We can ask her that. Well, so we'll be like question number 1, how old are you? Question number 2, ever thought about like ending with Godzilla?
Yeah, like where is your sci-fi novel? That's what I want to know. Like, will you ever write like a barbarian epic?
Like I think it's a Spanish language, that movie Extraterrestrial. Do you know that one? Where
it's
like a domestic drama.
That's a Nacho Vigalondo movie.
It's like, I think it's like a domestic drama, but just like it's down the street from an alien invasion, which is like such a cool idea. It's like, no, but like it's not really an alien movie. It's just like a relationship drama, but also like aliens. He made a
kaiju movie like that too, called Colossal with Anne Hathaway.
Oh yeah, love that. Yeah. I saw that at Fantastic Fest.
So Danielle, where is your Nachos Figalando's book? What's like? Is that going to be your next book? Can you give us something?
Can we do a time crisis? Los Criminals?
Yeah. Give us a time travel book that like still has, I still want the unpleasant fingering.
It's got to be firmly rooted in reality.
Yeah, firmly rooted in men's sexual ineptitude and how lonely they make women with that exact ineptitude.
I know that we're winding down, but there's one thing that like she mentions in both books that I'd never heard before, or at least I don't think, where she's just like, my body would not let them have sex with me. Like my body was just like shut off to them. And I'm just like, I wonder if that's like a real thing. I mean, it's probably a real thing, but also might be just like an emotional thing. Like I don't want to, but also like people try it and they just couldn't because like my body said no. And I'm like, okay, maybe. Yeah. It's just an interesting, like, I don't know anything about the female body. I don't really know anything about the male body either. Like that's not me being sexist. It's just me being like an idiot.
Sure.
Keep reading.
I got a crime. I have a crime.
A time crime.
A time crime. Is today's time crime not killing Hitler?
Is that a crime?
No. Not killing Hitler is not a crime. Yeah.
Killing Hitler. Is that a crime?
It would have been a crime. Yeah. Certainly in Germany.
Nazi Germany.
During that period. Assassinating foreign leader. That's your crime for today. Theme song.